Most of your deaths are decided 3 seconds before the gunfight. It's not your aim, it's the spawn system. You're late. You're late to good positions, you're late to the rotation, and you're late to react. And the game is punishing for every single hill. Ranked, it will take you 500 hours to accidentally learn spawns. So why are some players reading the map like they've got radar hacks while you are getting shot from random angles? In this video, I am going to show you how to learn the Black Ops 7 spawn system on your own in a few dedicated, deliberate hours using the bot lobby. You are going to get so good at learning the spawn system, people are genuinely going to think you have radar hacks. This video is for Black Ops 7 ranked players. This video is for any of you guys who want to improve and who are hard stuck and you guys keep saying, I kind of know where they're spawning, but sometimes I'm getting surprised by dumb angles. If that is you, by the end of this video, you're going to die less, you're going to rank up faster, and you will feel like you've got an internal UAV because you actually know where the next enemy is about to appear. I have coached thousands of players who have put in hundreds and hundreds of hours into ranked and pubs and they don't improve. It's not because they're bad, it's because they are not intentional about learning where enemies will appear. Once you understand how spawns actually work, most of your decisions in ranked will become automatic. I will break this down into a couple of parts so you know what's happening and why it matters. Okay, before we get into the actual method, I need to kill one lie that is keeping you hard stuck. Playing more ranked does not guarantee, and it does not automatically teach you spawns. Most of you guys that I have seen in my experiences will think, if I just play, I'll eventually figure it out. But 300 hours later, the map still feels random, the spawns feel random, you're still getting shot in the side, and you're still blaming your aim. You're trying to find solutions to improve your gun skill, but you're not even giving yourself a chance to use it. So what's actually going wrong? Here's the truth. You're learning spawns in the worst possible environment. In ranked, you will see the same situation once or twice at night. The lobby is a mess, the lobby's chaos, everybody's ego challenging, you're just focused about trying to win your gunfight. That means your brain is not getting a clean repetition of that pattern. So nothing sticks. What actually teaches you spawns is seeing the same situation 20 times in 20 minutes, not 20 days. This is what we call deliberate practice. It's not a case of just playing more, it's the controlled repetition of one specific skill. In our case, in today's video, how do we determine where they're spawning? What causes enemies to spawn in a certain location? What are the variables towards the spawn and how do I read them in real time? If you've ever thought, why am I not learning spawns even though I've played 100 hours? The answer is simple. You're not repeating the same situation deliberately. Once you fix that, or once you're deliberate, you go from random to predictable. And that's exactly what the next part of this video is going to be. The Codcaster bot lobby method. What I use with professional players to save them time and hundreds of hours of wasteful grinding. So now you know why just playing more ranked isn't going to teach you spawns. Let me show you a easy, efficient way to use the lab that does teach you the spawns. This is the Codcaster bot lobby method, and if you do this properly, it will save you 100 hours of blind grinding. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to set up our lobby. So what I want you to do is go into custom games, go into private games, and you are going to choose the map that you feel like you struggle with the most. You can even do this for an entire map, or you can work on it a hill at a time. For the sake of this video, I'm going to show you one hill, okay? You can add bots. What I would recommend is go to Codcaster and add one bot first. That's all we are doing, is adding one first, okay? Then you go to your rules. Make sure, you can change it, input it as much as you want. If you want more time, more score, if you want the zone lifetime to be longer so you can have more ability to look at a hard point. So say if you want 2 minutes a hill, 1 minute a hill, whatever, up to you, completely up to you. If you are new to this, I would recommend 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4. More of your advanced players, you can start off with 3v3 and 4v4. The goal here, you are not overcomplicating this. The goal is you are noting down the spawn points for each single hill. That's it. All you're doing, noting down the spawn points without ranked, without the chaos in the way, so you can learn as quick as you can. This is the first step of pattern recognition and pattern identification. So let's do it here. So right here, we'll use the first hardpoint as an example. All we are doing in this 1v1 is we are just trying to figure out what the spawn points are. We're not working on spawn logic. Just after every kill, where they are, you will then note this down like this. You will continue to do this for every single hill. So I've kept it down to 30 seconds for P1 just to show you, okay, this is the idea for it. Once you have done 1v1, you will do this for 2v2, 3v3, and 4v4. I'm going to show you an example of 4v4 just to flesh it out a little bit, but you get the idea. You're not surprised by where enemies are going to spawn anymore. You are going to start to pay attention to when and why they spawn in certain locations. Now we're going to start using pattern recognition to tie the two together. So now here we go, guys. We're going to do 4v4. The reason why I want you to start off with 1v1, 2v2s, 3v3s and 4v4s is it's what we call chunking. We're breaking down a specific skill into a ladder tiered system. When you work on something individually, you increase the chance of you learning and you're more efficient in doing so. If I had just continued to 4v4, you aren't going to learn at a quicker pace as you would by doing 1v1, 2v2, 3v3 and 4v4. It's actually counterproductive. So right here, with this being said, I use Epic Pen. Now I'm going to note where people are going to spawn. You get a general sense and a general idea of where people are going to spawn. Easy as that. So with 30 seconds left, you keep just making a mental note of where potentially they are going to spawn. Okay? Easy as that. So now we move from locations to rules. Before we begin on the next step of understanding the spawns, I want you to think about this map into quadrants, split down the middle into 4. And then I want you to think about the 50-yard line of the hardpoint, the halfway point of a hardpoint, okay? General rule of thumb, this is the general logic of the spawns. If one of your teammates overextends past that 50-yard line, and it's just one of them to the enemy side, the game is going to try and spawn that enemy as deep as possible with a weighted scale diagonal to him. The further you push out one way, the further back you have to push out the other. It's a scale system. We call this a map progression spawn system. So the positioning of you and your teammates will entirely dictate the spawn of the enemy and vice versa. So it's very valuable information. The further you push up the map, there are certain rules to it, the more it will dictate where the enemy is spawning. If 2 or more people push past the 50-yard line of the hill, with regards to these quadrants, the game will try and flip you out to any open quadrant behind you, what it deems to be safe. That's how you get like a full flip. So sometimes when 2 people are pushed past the 50-yard, you have one side, let's say this side open. When 2 people are pushed out this way, the game's like, okay, I'm going to spawn you on this side of the map. How deep will be based on that scale. If it's white time, nobody has proper control of the hill, or you don't have progression towards either side of the hill, well, the enemy team is going to get the closest, safest spawn possible, which we call a no map progression spawn. Anytime you get a no map progression spawn, either the hill is white, or because the enemies haven't progressed up the map, because the game deems it to be the safest possible. You also want to pay attention to the skulls, because the skulls of where your teammates die can manipulate and block a spawn point for like a second also. These death spots are considered not safe to spawn on, so the game will, look for a slightly wider pocket or a different location for you to spawn. In this part of the spawn system lab, what I want you to do, guys, is pick a hill, whatever it may be, with these rules in your mind already, and just look at where someone is spawning once the hill is popped. And with this in mind, you can ask, okay, why has he just spawned here? Why has he just spawned here? Why has he spawned here but a teammate hasn't spawned here? Right? This is then how you start to develop pattern recognition, and you can start to come up with your own consistencies why certain people are spawning in certain areas. Where were their teammates? Where were you? And which quadrants were considered safe? Were they on the hill? Were they not on the hill? And you'll start to see patterns develop. And this is the rulebook that you will start to build in your head to then build upon. Now, even using this as an example, as you're marking the map, you look at the map and say, okay, why has he spawned out here, right? Look at the system here. Why are they spawning here? Well, closest spawn towards the time, because they have no map progression, right? And you start to then ask questions of why is he spawning here? Why is he spawning here? Why is this guy spawning here? Okay, if this is an unfavorable spawn, how do we force teams to spawn here, right? So on and so forth. You see when number 6 is spawned here. Now, why has he spawned here, yet he's spawning here? And you start to ask these questions. It's not necessarily about being 100% right, which you're not going to be. Even pro players, I promise you, aren't 100% right. But it's about how can you get more of an understanding of where and why certain people are spawning in certain places. And now this is where you can limit test, where you can actually be in the game and understand, okay, how far do I need to push up in this way to hard block a spawn point forcibly, right? Or how far do I need to be backwards based on you pushing out to block a spawn, right? Because it's a weighted scale system. The further I push out one way, the game wants you to push out in the other way. And then there are certain spots that you can play that may hard block multiple spawn points. There might be certain areas you go to that might hard block certain spawn points. There might be line of sight blocking. You might accidentally block with a frag, because that has been a thing in Call of Duty too. You might block with a frag grenade, the smoke of a frag grenade. So you start to use these different levers to think and understand, okay, I can do this to either block, I can do this to either hide flip, and you either avoid or do it. So you start to see how we build it up. So what I want you to do next, guys, is go into your ranked games, and once you have an understanding and a general idea of, okay, he goes here, this is where they spawn, why they spawn, start saying it out loud. When you start to say it out loud, when you're actually playing, it goes from theory to feeling. The feeling is what we want to work on. When you can feel something, you start to do it naturally without overthinking. The idea here is not to overthink, and it's to do things autonomously. So start saying it out loud where you think people are going to be, and from that you can work out if the spawn predictions are right, if they're wrong. What I would recommend here, guys, is when you do your 4v4 mental models, is when someone dies, you look at your kill feed, you say, okay, where are they going to spawn? Oh, based on da-da-da-da-da, I think they're going to spawn here. If you're right, good. Understand why are you right. If you're wrong, ask yourself, okay, why has he spawned here? You're not trying to overcomplicate this, because there's things you're just not going to read. It's Call of Duty because it's so fast. But you're trying to get better at pushing the ceiling of how much you can read. And then from how much you can read, you can position yourself from that. Right, so now you've seen how the spawn system works in a private lobby, but in ranked, everything is going to feel 10 times faster. And half of you are still only looking at your minimap after you die, if at all. So how do you actually use all that spawn knowledge in real time when the bullets are flying? This is where you start to what we call download the map. You're training your brain to take mini screenshots of the game every few seconds, so your decisions are automatic and not just reactions. If you don't build this, two things will keep on happening. You'll know the spawns in theory, but you're still going to get surprised in practice. The idea of learning your spawn knowledge is to take that theory into feeling. We're trying to make it automatic. We're trying to develop neuroplasticity. We're trying to develop your muscle memory. So these are things you are feeling without actually thinking about it. You will always be half a second late because you're not seeing or playing the map early enough. When I talk about downloading the map, I'm talking about your brain constantly reading different layers of information. You have static information, the basic stuff. Where the hill is, the lanes, the head glitches, the power positions, stuff like that. You have semi-static information, so things that change with the hardpoint or with the phase of a hill. So where are the spawn points, the routes that enemies can take, your power positions, your hybrid spots, your cutoffs, things like that. You then have what we call dynamic information, which is things you can see live. Your teammates' positions or your teammates' dots, enemy dots, your kill feed, last known enemy locations, gaps in the minimap where enemies could potentially be, and most importantly, you're predicting where enemies are going to be spawning. You put these together and your brain is always asking, given this picture, where is the safest spot an enemy is going to spawn? And with that, where are they likely to push from next? This is how you go from being very reactive in Call of Duty to someone who is proactive. This is how you look like you have built-in radar. Most players only check the minimap when they panic, if at all, or after they get shot in the back, right? That's too late. You want to develop a rhythm when you're checking it before that happens and after a couple of seconds. After every life, every time you spawn up, there's a rhythm to how much you check your minimap. So you always know what's going on and what could go wrong. This is what we call minimap awareness. Awareness is the combination of the information that you have in the moment, as we described before, the different types of information, and positioning. Where are you in the moment? This awareness leads to evaluation. You decide what's a good decision, what isn't a good decision. I won't get into that today. And then you can decide what your best or optimal or highest chance of a play is. We won't talk about any of that today. What I will talk about are drills to help you develop your minimap awareness, so it takes it from theory into application. The first drill I want to talk about is the minimap scan. This is very simple. You are teaching your eyes to check the minimap on a rhythm, not randomly, so it becomes muscle memory. Load up a bot game on Hardpoint. You'll put on a metronome timer on your phone or on your second screen, and you're going to ask it to beep every 2 to 3 seconds. Every beep, you will look at your minimap, and you are going to say out loud 3 things. Where are your teammates? Because remember, you're going to put bots on. Where are your teammates? And you are going to say where they are. You are going to look at your minimap and look at where the gaps are on the map. The gaps are here, here, and here. And based on this, I think the enemies are going to spawn here. Where are they most likely going to push next? The goal is not to be right with your spawn predictions. All you're doing is predicting where they're most likely to push next with the information you have in the moment. At first, it's going to seem slow and it's going to seem forced, but you're literally teaching your brain, beep, scan, facts, play. After a while, you remove the metronome, but you keep the rhythm. Every few seconds, you are going to naturally scan, download the information, develop minimap awareness, and then it starts to become automatic. The next drill I want to talk about is the kill, delay, download. Scanning the minimap on itself isn't enough. It doesn't link you to spawns, the prediction of the spawns. You almost become a minimap spectator instead of a smarter decision maker. So the second drill, kill, delay, download, it ties your minimap awareness that we're developing into spawn knowledge. This is chunking. We're taking specific skills, breaking them down so you can work on each one individually without it being overwhelming. This is how you get efficient improvement. Jump into a private lobby with 4 bots. Every time you get a kill, you are going to count the respawn timer, 2.5 seconds in your head. You are then going to immediately look at the minimap and you are going to say, okay, where are my teammates? What side of the map is open? Given that information, where do I think they are going to spawn? Make sure radar is on, because you are going to do this after you make 1 kill. Guess, look at your minimap, see if you are right. Feel free to record this. You are training 2 key things. You're checking the minimap after an important event, kill, death, hardpoint pops, and you're linking that to your spawn rules that you've learned. You're taking theory to application. Oh, they're not over here? Okay, they're going to spawn here. Wait, they haven't spawned here. Why haven't they spawned here? Then you start to fill in the gaps that theory isn't going to give you, right? You are going to do this until you are honestly bored of it. When you are bored, that's when I want you to do a few more. You are going to do a couple more runs when you're bored, because this is how you start to develop neuroplasticity. Boredom is how you develop muscle memory, guys. Keep it up. If you skip this and only learn spawns in the lab, you're going to keep saying, I know the theory, but I can't use it in ranked. And this is information plus positioning. The minimap gives you information, your body gives you positioning, you then evaluate, decide, communicate, act way faster than the average rank player. Once this scan rhythm becomes natural, all that codcaster work you are doing is going to show up in the moment, show up live. You're not guessing anymore, but you're reading the map and you're going to be predicting where the next enemy is going to be. But even if you can see the map clearly, you're still going to get broken if you don't understand how respawns come in waves and how that affects timings. That will be the next layer. All right. You understand spawns, or at least you're working on spawns, and you're starting to download the map in real time. The next layer in moving your progress forward to make you feel like you're 1 step ahead in every fight is thinking about waves and thinking about timings. I'm not going to go into super detail, but I am going to introduce the concept for you guys so you can work on it on your own. So in ranked, people don't just usually respawn 1 by 1 in isolation. You come back to the life in waves. Think of a team fight in League of Legends. You have a team fight, that counts as a wave. You spawn up, that's a second wave. You die again together, that's another wave, right? A wave is a batch of respawns created when a group of players die around the same time, okay? So let's say 3 or 4 of your teammates die within 2 or 3 seconds. You are now on the same wave. Same wave meaning you'll probably take the same fights, you know, the timings of the fights, you'll probably get to the same area of the map around the same time. So this is why waves are very important. You're all spawning roughly together, you're all running out together, and the enemy gets a clean window to push up, take space, or set up a trap. Why does this matter to you? Because once you know what wave you're on, you can start predicting where the enemies are going to appear from, what routes the enemies are going to take, when they're going to appear, and whether you should fight now, chalk, reset, and anything relating to the fundamentals of Hardpoint, which I won't explain in this video. Waves is the answer to that feeling of, why do I always get flipped and broken at the worst times? It's usually because you are not thinking in waves. You're just ego challenging in between them. So what I want you to start doing is start counting your deaths out loud. Here's the practical part. When you are in game, you count your deaths and you count your kills out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time you hit 3 or 4 down, a new enemy wave is about to be born. Anytime you are 3 or 4 down, you know a new wave for your team is about to be born. Let's say you all die at the 32-second mark on the game clock. You know there's a respawn delay. Call it 2.5 seconds. Then you have what we call your travel time. You can then use that to predict, okay, I know where you're spawning. I know the wave. I have an idea of what routes you are going to take. Therefore, I can make a decision based on that. You then start using predictive modeling, and you're not surprised when they appear. You're prepared for it. You're ready for it. How do we use waves to plan ahead? Once you link your waves to timings, your decisions completely change. Timings are wherever they spawn, what routes can an enemy take, and how long with the options of routes that they have does it take relative to your position. That's your team has just wiped them. That is your cue to push up, get map control, set up a spawn trap, get into a good position, do what you need to do before the next wave hits. If your team has just been wiped, that's your cue to wait, stop solo challenging, and prioritize the right lanes in order to get your team out of a blend. There's so much more that goes into it. I'm not going to explain too much more. Okay, so you understand spawns. You've got an idea about waves and timings. Because remember, guys, we're breaking each individual skill set in a concept called chunking in order for you to learn quickly and efficiently. Let's talk about how do we apply this if you are solo queuing and how do we apply this if you are an actual team. If you are solo queuing, let's keep it simple. Let's talk about you. Once you understand spawns, your job changes from I'm going to chase red dots to how do I know where you're spawning and how do I make it so I get the easiest fights possible? You will now use your spawn knowledge to pick safer routes. You're going to stop sprinting to lanes where there's a high concentration of enemy or where you think they're going to be. You're going to avoid ego challenging power positions. If you know where they're going to be coming from a certain side, you're going to be using that advantage to let the game come to you, and you're going to use it to create opportunities to flank. You know where they're going to be funneling from. You know the routes that they're going to take, and you are going to take the path that gets you behind them. You are now playing with a plan. So how do pro players use this to get ahead? So this is what we call the shared team model. At the pro level, we use the exact same logic and we use this to put everyone on the same page. So on New York Subliners, this is what we would do with every new map and at the start of games, is we would get into a free-for-all. We would understand where they were spawning initially, do what we did, whatever. But we would now get into certain setups in order to give the biggest disadvantage to the enemy team. If we noticed, hey, for this particular hill, this feels like the worst spawn you can get. Why? Because either the routes that they have to take to get to the hill take a lot of time, or it's naturally a disadvantageous gunfight. We would get into positions and we would do what's called limit testing. We would say, okay, let's play this position in-game, let's be realistic about it, and let's see how we can get them to spawn in a certain place. If we noticed, okay, there are certain areas of the map which we call progression spots or hybrid spots that we must control. What happens when we control it and people fill in lanes around that? We would test if one person was here combined with a hybrid spot or one person was here, in different places to figure out where they would spawn. The reason for that is when you are in game, you already have an idea thinking ahead of, okay, if you're here, I'm here, they are going to spawn here. This is the disadvantage. This is what we want. This is how we get to do it. The reason why this is important is when the pressure is on, you deliberately practice this in scrims, because then when the pressure is on in a tournament or in a finals, you resort back to your system and your standards. And this is how you use repetition to get ahead of everyone. And this is what we did as part of New York Subliners, as part of the CDL team, is we would get into these lobbies and we would purposefully try and set up and control these power positions to put you in the worst position possible, right? Because if we work on this intentionally and we work on the setup, well, we know when the pressure is the highest, we're not thinking, this is the shared model system, we will do this automatically. And when you are intentional about what you're doing in the game, you can figure things out quickly. Okay, we recognize, right, if we push around this area of the map, if you aren't here, they're going to spawn out. Oh, but then if you are here and I'm pushing out this side of the map, well, they're going to spawn here. And you start to develop what we call a shared mental model. And this is what I'd recommend for you teams and the amateurs out there, is figure out exactly what areas of the map you want to control, hybrid spots, power spots, and how do you, from a flow perspective, how do you want to get in there? Because then you start thinking one step ahead, and that's how you start developing trust and bouncing off each other.